Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am Grace Perez, the FMDS Continuing Education Program Support Staff, and I am thrilled to be this morning's host for this program. Welcome to this month's LTIO on HR of the Future. This insightful lecture is proudly brought to you by the UPOU Faculty of Management and Development Studies, organized by the Master of Public Management Program, and in partnership with FMDS Public Service Committee. This discussion is organized to address the rapid advancement in AI, automation, and data analytics that are reshaping the industries and necessitating swift adaptation in human resource management and development. It aims to highlight the importance of acquiring new skills, fostering continuous learning, and encourage a proactive role from the academe in preparing future-ready professionals. It also aligns with our mission to integrate public service, research, and instruction embodied in our initiative towards sustainability, or CDAS. We are coming to you live from the UPO audiovisual room, and we are also streaming live via the UPOU Network's website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. SDGs, including quality education, or SDG 4, network and economic growth, or SDG 8, and industry. And now to officially welcome everyone to this event, Professor Joanne V. Serrano.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. Okay. So isang maalaba at mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat. Before I begin, allow me to warmly greet our distinguished speakers, Mr. Lian Angelico De Pante, Ms. Florence Joy Rivera, and Mr. Brian Carlo Hipolito. Magandang umaga sa inyo. It's my pleasure to welcome each of you and to officially open today's session in the Let's Talk It Over or LTIO series titled HR of the Future. This event is brought to you through the initiative of the Master of Public Management Program of FMDS CPOE. For those joining the LTIO series for the first time, this platform is dedicated to sharing knowledge and engaging with our community, demonstrating FMDS commitment to making education open and accessible to all. The Faculty of Management and Development Studies covers a range of fields from health and environmental management to public service and entrepreneurship, all focused on addressing issues that directly impact people's lives. Through LTIO, we bridge the gap between knowledge and those seeking it using a hybrid format that allows both in-person and virtual communities to come together in meaningful discussions, no matter where they are. Inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, our goal with initiatives like LTIO is to empower FMDS students and the broader public to contribute to these global goals. In today's LTIO, we'll explore one of the most pressing challenges in the post-pandemic world, and this is making our human resources future-ready. And this is because of the rapidly changing work environment driven by technological innovations. We all know that the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of technologies, for example, AI, data analytics, and even robotics. And these are not just optional tools anymore, but as necessities to maintain stability. These innovations have fundamentally transformed the entire human resources and even the labor market, creating extraordinary opportunities, but also presenting significant challenges. And with every leap forward in technology, we must ask, are we able to keep up? If the workforce lacks the agility to adapt, a gap will inevitably emerge. In a study by McKinsey in 2020, 2021, they identified the critical skills and attitudes that HR practitioners and organizations must develop to thrive in this ever-changing landscape. And this highlights the importance of equipping the workforce with with new competencies, rethinking traditional practices, and embracing adaptability. For higher education institutions like UPOU, this challenge is also an opportunity. And we consider ourselves as the university of the future. Therefore, we must align our academic programs, research, and public service initiatives with these emerging realities. It's our role to ensure that graduates are not only ready for the future of work, but also capable of addressing real-world problems with innovative solutions. The future of HR is not just a professional concern, it's a developmental concern globally. And the rapid advancements in AI, automation, and data analytics require immediate adaptation. For the workforce, this means learning new skills, relearning existing ones, and even unlearning outdated practices. And for the academe, it means shaping future-ready professionals who can navigate a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world of work. HR challenges are particularly nuanced in the voluntary sector, where one of our major in MPM is, where unique operational context and resource constraints make future-proofing even more critical. And today's discussions will help equip HR professionals with the theoretical and practical knowledge needed to address these challenges across all sectors. So as we engage in this session, I encourage everyone to take this opportunity to share their thoughts, learn from one another, and reflect on how HR can evolve into a more visionary, adaptive, and transformative practice. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to a fruitful and meaningful exchange of ideas. So welcome to HR of the Future. Thank you.
May we kindly remind our please free to start preparing questions as you listen to questions on the provided paper and handed to any of our facilitators. Also ask your questions directly during the open forum. For our online participants, please post your questions in the comment or chat box on your streaming platform. For our attendees here at the AVR, please be mindful of the cameras as we are live streaming this morning's event. Lastly, please remember to practice proper waste segregations. Refreshments and snacks are available to your right, while the restrooms are located outside to your left. Okay, so that's it for reminders. Now it's my pleasure to our first speaker for today. Our first speaker is the president of Travel Bag World Consultancy and Travel Services Incorporated, a travel company, and the national president of NAITAS, a leading association nationwide. With over 20 years of professional success, Ms. Flo is a seasoned leader and strategic thinker. She holds a degree in political science and a postgraduate diploma in industrial relations from the School of Labor and Industrial Relations, both from the University of the Philippines. Her multidisciplinary career spans education technology, English as a second language or ESL, and tourism, where she has held key leadership roles. And as the former HR director of Go Fluent and one of the founding core members of the first general manager of 51 Talk, she displayed an integral role in revolutionizing distance learning. She led initiatives that leverage technology platforms to enable Filipino teachers to connect with learners worldwide, establishing her as a trailblazer in the intersection of education. Today, Ms. Flo channels her expertise into the resource management. Here to discuss the human tech revolution, skills and strategies for the jobs of the future, let's all give the floor to Ms. Florence Joyce Rivera. Ma'am Jo.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you po.
Okay. Yung presentation ko po ba, you will share it or? Okay, there you go.
Yes, ma'am, we will share your presentation.
All right, so good morning again to everyone. My name is Florence Rivera. You can call me Flo. And to everyone watching, I can't make it there physically today, so I decided to join via Zoom. So for my presentation, today, it's entitled The Human Tech Revolution, Skills and Strategies for the Jobs of the Future. So can we move to the next slide? Pa-move na lang po sa next slide. All right. Sige ma'am, sa next na po tayo. There you go. Okay. So this is the reality and the challenge today, according to the World Economic Forum, between now and 2027, businesses predict that 44% of workers' core skills will be disrupted because technology is moving faster than companies can design and scale up their training programs. That means 6 in 10 workers will require training before 2027. That's around 3 years na lang. But only half of workers are seen to have access to adequate training opportunities. And the statistic is global, no? I think in the Philippines, it's even higher than this. So this is something that we should really think about. Can we move to the next slide, po? In the next 5 years, almost a quarter of jobs, around 23%, are expected to change. Employers anticipate 69 million new jobs to be created and 83 million eliminated. Again, this is global. A net decrease of 14 million jobs. And this is in the next 3 to 5 years. The World Economic Forum listed down the fastest growing versus the fastest declining jobs. So let's take a look at the list on the left. The 10 fastest growing jobs. Of course, expected na, number 1, AI and machine learning specialists. Second, sustainability specialists. So this is related to the green economy, which I will discuss later. Of course, business intelligence analysts are still very important. Same with information security, fintech engineers, data analysts and scientists, robotics engineers, electrotechnology, and number 9, surprisingly, agricultural equipment operators. Agriculture together with education are actually 2 of the fastest growing industries in the next few years. And of course, the digital transformation specialist. So these are considered from the survey of the World Economic Forums, the jobs expected to grow most quickly from 2023 to 2027. And then on the right, we have the 10 fastest declining jobs. Okay. Number 1 on the list are the bank tellers and related clerks, because as you know, we are now transitioning into digital payments, digital banking. Digital even banking. Yung mga tricycle traffic, GCash na yung hinihingi nila ngayon na payment. So I think in the next few years, there will be less and less need for bank tellers and related clerks. In the WEF survey, it's around 40% decline in the next few years for these kinds of jobs. And then, of course, we have the postal service clerks, cashiers and ticket clerks, data entry clerks. These are very highly automatable jobs. So madali pong palitan ni AI. I think that's why they are declining really fast. They will be declining really fast in the next few years. Same with admin and executive secretaries at number 5. And the material recording and stock keeping clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks, statistical and finance and insurance clerks. So mostly clerical jobs will be replaced by AI because they're highly automatable. And number 8 is surprising, legislators and officials, fastest declining jobs. But then again, this is global, no? Maybe in the Philippines, I am seeing more and more of them. But yeah, globally, less legislators and officials will be needed. Door-to-door sales workers, news and street vendors, and related workers. I think we've been seeing the decline for the past few years. So they will continue to decline in the coming years. So there are a lot of fastest growing, but also a lot of declining jobs in the next few years. Can we move to the next slide, Bob? Okay. So with that, we also have new jobs being created because of new technology and new industries. And number 1 on the list is technology seen to create jobs are big data and AI. So 65% of survey respondents expect job growth in these related roles. The employment of data analysts and scientists, big data specialists, AI machine learning specialists, and cybersecurity professionals are all expected to grow. So, and I think all the other related jobs, no, to big data and AI will definitely grow in the next few years. Next slide, po. With big data and AI are also jobs related to the green economy. So the green transition could create 30 million jobs globally in clean energy, efficiency, and low emissions technologies by 2030. So if you look at the picture in this slide, you have sustainability specialists. This is number 2 in the list earlier. In the tourism world, I've been seeing a lot of these now, a lot of sustainability companies and sustainability specialists working in the tourism sphere, no, to help hotels and airlines and all other tourism enterprises ensure that sustainability is incorporated into their processes. So dumadami po yung mga sustainability specialists, and I believe it's the same for almost all industries. Solar energy installation and system engineers, renewable energy engineers, and all the related professions and careers in this field. So the green transition will definitely drive job growth in the next few years. So this is a good career path to have or to be trained in if you're interested in this kind of job. However, the largest absolute gains in jobs will come from education and agriculture. Jobs in the education industry are expected to grow by about 10%, leading to 3 million additional jobs for vocational education teachers, and university and higher education teachers. Same for agriculture, no? There will be more and more need for operators, yung mga truck drivers, and everyone related to the agriculture ecosystem. That will also be, that will see a lot of job growth in the next few years. So hindi lang naman siya tech-related jobs. There are also non-technical jobs that will still be in demand in the next few years. Can we move to the next slide, po? Okay, now the challenge is bridging the job skills gap, because this has been a problem in the Philippines for so long, no? Yung job skills mismatch, the gap between job demand and skills. And in the next few years, that will grow even wider. So to address the evolving demands of jobs in a tech-driven economy, the private sector must prioritize reskilling and upskilling its workforce. And the key skill areas include, of course, everyone must be fluent in the digital language. Tech-savvy expertise will be a key skill area. AI literacy, data analytics, familiarity with digital tools. Everyone should be trained on this. And of course, creativity and innovation, as simple tasks are becoming more automatable. We need more creativity and innovation. We need to craft unique solutions in a highly competitive and ever-changing market. And human-centric capabilities. These will become very important as well. Emotional intelligence, adaptability, your ability to collaborate, especially in tech-enhanced roles, will be in high demand, and everybody should be upskilled and reskilled in this area also. And again, there's sustainability knowledge, integrating green practices across all levels of operations as we transition into the sustainable or green economy. So expertise in this area will also be crucial in the next few years. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so according to the World Economic Forum, the top 10 skills of 2023 are the following. At the top of the list are cognitive skills. So analytical thinking and creative thinking are the core skills that will be needed. Again, as simple skills will be automated. So we need more people in the workforce who can analyze and who can be creative. These are highly human jobs that AI or technology cannot replicate, at least for now. Okay. Number 3, resilience, flexibility, agility, motivation and self-awareness, curiosity and lifelong learning. These are all self-efficacy skills. Again, very human and very much still in demand in the next few years. Number 6 on the list is technological literacy. So of course, these are the technology skills needed. 7 is dependability and attention to detail. Again, a very human trait or skill. Empathy and active listening. Leadership and social influence. So these 2 skills are considered to be working with others skills. The ability to work with others will be very important in the next few years. And of course, quality control, which is a management skill. So if you look at this list, these are highly human skills that will be in demand in the next couple of years as simple tasks become automated. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so there are also what we call the top 10 skills on the rise. So these are skills judged to be increasing in importance most rapidly between 2023 and 2027. So very similar to the previous list, except that here, technological literacy is already at the top 3. But creative thinking and analytical thinking are still the top 2 skills. 4 and 5 are still curiosity, lifelong learning. Resilience, flexibility, agility, still on the top 5. And we have systems thinking on number 6. 7, AI and big data is already here. 8, motivation and self-awareness. Again, still on self-efficacy. Talent management, which is a management skill. And service orientation and customer service. Yes, I think this is going to be a top skill in the next few years or decades, because these are what we call engagement skills, or the ability to engage and work with others will be very important in the next few years and even decades, even with technology, even with advanced technology. So let us not be intimidated with technology, because technology is there to assist us, help with simple tasks that can be automated. What we can do is upskill and reskill our skills and be good in creative thinking, in analytical thinking, and all these top skills on the list. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so I've mentioned reskilling and upskilling strategies. For companies, a versatile workforce is really necessary, because this is the era of disruptions. And there will be disruptions every week, every month, every year, as technology become more advanced. So for HR professionals and for employees as well, we have to identify skills gaps among our current workforce and regularly assess employee skills and performance to identify areas for improvement. So if you have a workforce that is not very fluent in the digital language or in the tools that you use in the company, or you plan to use in the next couple of years, then this is the time to identify those gaps. And by identifying those gaps, you can also establish clear goals with employees and with your workforce. Performance evaluations will be crucial and must reflect what an employee needs to work on and how they can be supported by the company. Mentorship and networking will also be needed to reskill and upskill. So connecting employees to mentors, whether internally or externally, and encouraging them to widen their network, to engage with others. Remember, engagement skills was one of the considered as a top skill in the list we discussed earlier. And continuous learning. As technology advances, we need to learn how to learn continuously. We have to create a learning culture so that employees can align with their career goals and the organization's goals, and they can grow with a company. So reskilling and upskilling will really be a necessity in the next couple of years if you want to adapt in this highly volatile environment. Can we move to the next slide? Okay. So since we are talking about HR in the private sector, I've broken them down into different HR tasks. And let's see how the changing HR landscape is revolutionizing the HR role in companies, no, in the private sector. So definitely technology has revolutionized HR practices. It has empowered HR professionals to streamline processes and enhance employee engagement. So number one, for recruitment and talent acquisition, we are not new to job portals. We know JobStreet, we know Indeed.com and all that. But now it has become more advanced with applicant tracking systems, AI-enabled algorithms that streamline hiring processes. So there are many of these now being used, especially by large corporations or multinational corporations, allowing HR professionals to identify and attract top talent more efficiently. AI-powered resume screening and video interviewing even. They help filter and assess candidates, assess their suitability, saving time and resources. So in the recruitment and talent acquisition field, we've been seeing a lot of technology, advanced technology now being used by companies, and there will be more and more in the coming years as new technologies are being invented and created. For employee engagement and communication, so intranet systems are not new to us, but there will be more collaborative platforms that are also AI-enabled in the next few years that will help foster collaboration among employees, regardless of where they are. Especially for multinational companies now, everyone is, they have employees everywhere, and remote work is also rising. So employee engagement and communication tools will be highly in demand in the next few years. HR professionals can leverage employee engagement platforms to measure and improve employee satisfaction, collect feedback, recognize employee achievements. And these digital tools can enable real-time performance tracking, allowing for continuous feedback and performance management. So definitely on this part of HR, employee engagement and communication, there will be a lot of technological disruptions also, and there will be more and more tools and systems available to HR professionals that can make our jobs easier, faster, and more effective. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, number 3, learning and development. This is where we are seeing so many disruptions, so many advances. Online learning management systems are not new, but the kinds that we are seeing now are highly advanced and can really help everyone in the company, all the employees, learn on the go. They can use their mobile, they can learn while they're commuting, they can learn while they're cooking. So, and they can learn at their own pace. So this is making knowledge really more accessible and flexible. In some companies, virtual reality and augmented reality technologies provide immersive learning experiences, particularly in technical and hands-on training scenarios. So learning and development is one area of HR that will really see a lot of developments in the next couple of years and will really transform the field of HR. They're saying that with AI and all these technological advances, everyone should really learn how to learn continuously because technology will advance in such a fast pace. So what we are trained to do now may not be what we need in a couple of months or in a year's time. So we need to be able to adapt really fast and be agile in learning and handling new things. Another area of HR that's being disrupted, and I think in a very good way, is data-driven HR decision making. So there are so many data analytic tools now that can provide insights into various HR metrics, such as employee turnover, performance, engagement. And these insights can help identify patterns, trends, areas for improvement, enabling all HR professionals to develop effective strategies and interventions. Predictive analytics can also be utilized to forecast workforce needs and make informed talent management decisions. So this is AI can really help us gather all the data and make decisions based on those data. And hopefully it will make everything faster and more efficient and effective in terms of decision making. All right, let's move to the next slide. And the last one is automation of HR operations. So again, this is not new. This has been going on for some time, but there will be more and more tasks to be automated, simplified, and streamlined, freeing HR professionals from admin tasks. So there's what we call robotic process automation, or RPA, that can help automate repetitive and time-consuming processes, such as payroll, leave request, onboarding procedures. There are now chatbots and virtual assistants that can handle employee inquiries, providing quick and accurate responses, and reducing the HR team's workload, at least for simple questions and repetitive questions. No? This automation will allow HR to focus on strategic initiatives and providing a higher level of personalized support to employees. So it's about time that HR focuses on strategic roles, because especially here in the Philippines now, marami pa rin mga companies that consider HR as simply administrative. So when you say HR, they automatically associate that with payroll, timekeeping, a bit of accounting and bookkeeping. So yeah, they still think that HR is just all about that, but HR can actually, HR's role is really strategic in a company. It should be strategic. It should be high level. And AI and tech advances will help usher that, I think, force companies to really think of HR, their HR, as a strategic department, or playing a strategic role in the company. So embracing technology in HR will enable companies to optimize their workforce, increase productivity, and create positive employee experience. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so what will HR look like in 2030? That's in 5 years. Well, first, we have to consider that new generations will take over. Boomers will be around 60 to 65 in 5 years, which means they will be leaving the workforce very soon. So a lot of these companies will bring in a lot of the Gen Zs, which are very different from the boomers, right? In terms of traits. Boomers are used to hierarchical structures. Gen Zs are the total opposite. And they don't just want to work because of work. They want to find meaning. They have values that they want their companies to mirror and reflect. So this will definitely change the way HR will have to respond and will have to design employee engagement programs, and will really change the way HR will look like in the coming years. Some HR experts are saying that people experience departments will emerge. So people experience will be totally different from HR. These are departments that will proactively work with employees, see how they live, how their work affects their life, to really go into people management and inclusivity in the company. So this is a very interesting area in the future, because as companies try to keep talent, and within the company, and this will be very challenging, especially for large corporations with thousands of employees around the world. But I think this is in the right direction, making companies really invest in their people. They say robots will take on more work, but humans won't be left behind. So definitely, we will be seeing a lot of automation, again, for simple tasks, clerical tasks, administrative tasks. But humans will still be behind that. We will still be needed for analysis, for creativity, and for all the other functions of HR. And HR is about humans. So definitely the human touch will still be very important. Digital training will be a necessity. Yes, I think this is already being adopted by a lot of multinationals and foreign corporations, but maybe yet to trickle down to medium and small scale businesses. But in the next few years, digital training will really be a necessity. More and more companies will see the value of doing digital training and will invest in digital training for their companies. Phygital, the new normal. So phygital, physical, and digital. Hybrid work is here to stay. I remember in what the CEO of one of the companies I consult with asked me if he could ask all the employees to come back to the office 5 days a week, because during the pandemic they were given the perk to work from home, and after that it has become hybrid. They work from home twice a week and go to the office 3 times a week. But now he wants everyone to come to the office every day. And it's becoming an issue for HR because a lot of the employees consider this as a perk. And of course, they wouldn't want to have that removed. So a lot of them are looking for other jobs that could give them this kind of hybrid work arrangement. So based on the survey, definitely hybrid work is here to stay. And even if a lot of companies are now asking employees to come back, eventually the hybrid work arrangement will be the norm or the trend. So phygital will be the new normal. All right, let's move to the next slide. So wrapping up my presentation today, as we stand at the crossroads of rapid technological advancement and shifting global demands, the future of work calls for more than just adaptation. It calls for innovation, resilience, and a commitment to lifelong learning. While some jobs may decline, countless opportunities await those who are ready to embrace change and invest in the skills of tomorrow, such as analytical thinking, creativity, and emotional intelligence. Remember, the future isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create. Together, let us shape a world where technology amplifies our humanity and where every challenge becomes a chance to grow. Let us not just prepare for the future of work, let us lead it. And I'm talking to UP students and UP faculty, I believe, who are leaders of our communities and families and society. So yes, moving to the next slide. This is my, I would want to leave this with you today. From Peter Drucker, the management guru, he said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So let us not fear change. Let's lead it. Thank you, everyone.
Indeed, it's high time for us to upskill and reskill ourselves in order for us to adapt to the changing landscape of the workforce. Okay, so I hope everyone is still with us because we got so much more exciting discussions coming up. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our second speaker is an early career academic with a multidisciplinary background in political economy, public administration, Asian studies, and policy studies. Before pursuing his PhD at the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, or GRIPS, in Tokyo, Japan, he was an assistant professor of the public management at the University of the Philippines Open University, or UPOU, and served as the chairperson of the Master of Public Management, or FPM program from AY 2023 to 2024. He is now a senior lecturer in the same department. He earned his MA in Asia Pacific Studies with a cognate in political economy from the National Chengchi University, or the National University of Governance in Taipei, as a Taiwan, and bachelor's degree in public administration, magna cum laude from the University of the Philippines. University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration and Governance, or NCPAG, where he also lectured as an affiliate faculty. He also served the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, in the Philippines' premier socio-economic planning body in 2017. His research interests include, among others, the politics of economic development, comparative public administration, and state capacity. He taught courses in public administration and policy studies, particularly the policy process, human resource management or development, and development governance. Let's get ready for another fascinating insight from Sir LA as he discusses what does it mean to be a 21st century public servant in the Philippines. Some guideposts in building state capacity and reclaiming our future. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Sir LA.
Hold on. Teka lang, paano ba mag-share? Nakikita niyo ba yung screen ko or
Yes, Sir LA po. We can see your screen
as
now.
in the entire full screen?
Yes po.
All right, sige. Okay. Thank you so much. Also, thank you for that introduction. So, yeah, siguro I just wanna make a brief comment on Miss Rivera's discussion. She really made a great point on, touching a lot of what I'm gonna be discussing. So, pinadali niya talaga yung buhay ko. So, in particular, she also enumerated the different skills required in this century in order to tackle the so-called wicked problems. She also emphasized that, HR management and department shouldn't be just dwelling on the admin side, but also on the strategic side, because HR, or the human resource, is the lifeblood of any organization, so to speak. She also mentioned that companies need to invest a lot. So, and this goes also for the public sector. I'll be briefly touching that aspect as well. And finally, she really emphasized this idea that, lifelong learning is crucial, and if not, the sine qua non to surviving the problems. So basically, our survival as humanity as we enter or traverse the 21st century. So yeah, napakaganda po nung naging mensahe po ni Miss Rivera. And she made, again, as mentioned, a great backdrop of what I'm going to be discussing in the context of public sector. So, by the way, let me just greet everyone. Konnichiwa. So, I'm currently here in Japan. I'm an hour ahead. So, once again, I'm LA. So, ako po ay isang Gen Z at heart. So, hindi na po ako Gen Z, but ang aking identity ay Gen Z. So, but I'll be presenting something really close to my heart. So, I'm not really just gonna be focusing on HR, but I'm gonna be touching and relating HR in the context of grander debates in theory of public administration. So that's why my title of my presentation is, what does it take to be a 21st century public servants in the context of a developing country like the Philippines? And this is I think, ito yung close to my heart, as mentioned din kanina sa introduction, yung idea of state capacity. So as a scholar of politics of development, in many countries, including Japan, Taiwan, and, Korea, nagde-develop from a developing context to now a very prosperous nations, ang pinaka-vital talaga ay yung state capacity, yung ability of the state to actually achieve their policy outcomes. So, all right. Sige, dami ko na nasabi. So, siguro I want to start my discussion with a little bit of setting the record straight. Unang-una po sa lahat, although nakapagturo po ako ng HRM and D, and more recently it's known as Human Capital Management, I don't consider myself as an expert. Kasi si Ma'am Reg yun. Si Ma'am Reg po yung expert natin sa Human Resource Management at UPOU. So I consider myself just as merely a student of government and politics. And like most of you, I happen to be a dreamer. So when I say I'm a dreamer, I expect the government to do more. I expect the government to be accountable. And I expect government to play an instrumental role in, in pushing us to development, so to speak. So, and yun nga, reflected tong aking pangarap dun sa research area ko, which is on state capacity and the so-called developmental states. So, when we say state capacity and developmental state, at least in the context of research, it's basically an investigation of what kind of role the government should play, and what kind of capabilities that the government needs to accomplish its mission, in particular development. So, and when we interrogate or when we investigate that, we also in a way touch yung yung HR aspect. So, sino ba ang isang public servant? Ano ba ang dapat ginagawa niya? And ano yung niya, nilalaro niyang role so that he or she or they can contribute to the task of nation building and development capacity building. So, all right. So my question here, in a way, in relation to the mga nabanggit ko na, ang dami ko na ulit nabanggit. Kasi as mentioned kanina, I'm a political economist, so I wanna kind of frame my discussion of the future of human resource dun sa context na ito. So more particularly, I'll be dwelling on the macro, as mentioned, yung yung grander debates on public administration and governance, and go deeper later on dun sa how the state affects the public servant, and in turn how the public servant affects the state. So, kaakibat nito yung tanong na what skills and mindset should a public servant must have in order for us to transform our state or government. So in line with this question, ito po yung outline ko. Basically, it's self-explanatory. I mean, yung policy scholars would really want to structure their presentations with of course, yung problema muna. and then finally a brief discussion and then solutions. So that's how I, in a way, outlined my presentation in line with our topic for today. So here, ito po yung mga problema na kinakaharap not just the Philippines but also of many countries and in particular the developing world today. So not just today pala, but also in the succeeding years, decades. So the University of Lincoln, it's a university in the United Kingdom, outlines these 10 grand challenges for the 21st century uh, for preparing, not just public servants, but also the society at large. So here we see changing economic powers. So what do we mean by that? So basically, we're seeing a transition from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. So around 1970s, or at least before that, mga 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. Yes, USSR was there, but dominant yung the United States. But today, we see the rise of the elephant in the room, which is China. So that in a way affects how government play or do its, how navigate rather in today's international and domestic realm. So also we have this vision or void of vision and foresight. Sa bilis kasi ng problema na kinakaharap ng bansa or ng ating not just bansa but again different actors in the global governance system. It engenders short-termism because wala nang much time to reflect and laging may pressure to really adopt and implement policies. So that's what UOL or University of Lincoln meant by this one. Secondly, inequality. More than ever, we are seeing really increased inequality at the global scale. Sa Pilipinas, talagang kitang-kita ito, but in the West or in the developed world, because of the rise of financialization, as well as, other aspects like big tech, we saw inequality to have increased. Of course, we have civic disaffection with the increased, with the social media. So it somehow affects states or the society to have lesser trust towards their governments. Migration, this is very seen or very apparent in the context of our country, wherein 10 million Filipinos are outside the country. And this affects how, governments manage the problems that we have today. Technology, na mentioned to ni Ms. Flo, we have AI, we have digitalization, we have si Dean kanina, na-mention niya robotics, di ba? So this really affects how public servants and other actors do its job. Eventually, of course, with greater AI adoption, magbabago yung way of conducting things. Also, climate change. We see greater climate change. In fact, the Philippines is the world's riskiest country in terms of disaster risks. So ito yung mga problema na kakaharapin ng ating mga public servants and of course governments. Conflict and war, more than ever then again, we're seeing several flashpoints, for instance, in the context of the West Philippine Sea and yung South China Sea. May potential na sumiklab yung gera. And yun yung kailangan i-navigate din ng ating mga public servants and other actors in the global governance system. Finally, globalization, greater capital flows, greater trade, it all in a way impacts, again, how we conduct things in the public and the private sector. So here, ito yung kinontextualize ko lang sa konteksto ng ating bansa, which is the Philippines. And lahat ng nabanggit po kanina ay really apparent sa atin. So in the context of technological disruptions, we see the BPO na mag-shrink because of shift of AI in their business operation. Sabina Shoal is now considered as a flashpoint in the China-Philippine, you know, dynamics. And of course, recently we've encountered four straight typhoons. So imagine that ito yung mga problema na kinakarahap ng Pilipinas, notwithstanding its problems in terms of resources and whatnot. So ngayon, against this political, social, environmental, technological backdrop, it is incumbent upon us that we rethink ways as to how we address these conundrums. So, therefore, the ever-pressing call of our time, especially for us scholars and practitioners of public ad and governance, is this one. So we need to innovate, we need to make our state more capable, and we need to be creative in order for us, in particular public servants, to address the so-called wicked problems, not just in the present but also in the future. So by wicked problems, ito yung mga problema na seemingly impossible to solve. They are sometimes compounding, as well as magkakaibang sector. So mahirap siyang isolve, and seemingly, as mentioned nga, hindi, parang imposible siyang masolusyonan. So ito po yung klaseng mga problema na kinakarap ng public servants, and I feel that this is very good way to introduce HR, because para saan ba yung ginagawa ng ating public servants? Para saan ba yung HR? Hindi, dun sa kanilang reason for existence, which is to promote development, to promote social justice, etc. So now, unfortunately, in the context of many developing countries, of course, obvious naman, kailangan na natin mag-innovate and to devise new solutions to problems. But unfortunately, yung capacity to really implement policies across different countries, especially in developing world, are not improving as we hope it would be. So in fact, scholars like Andrews, Pritchett, and Woolcock from the Harvard Kennedy School investigated this idea of state capacity, which is again the ability of governments to achieve their intention or their intended policy outcomes at the international level. So mostly here, developing countries, and only a handful was able to increase their capacities in implementing policies. So here we see Philippines as someone that has middle capability in implementing policy. We all know this. We have very good laws, but we can't seem to implement. But at the international level, we are in the middle. Pero ang problema, according to the study of Andrews et al., the Philippines, while we're in the middle, are rapidly deteriorating in terms of state capability. So again, bakit? So alam mo, we have a lot of human resource management programs, we have a lot of training, we have a lot of whatnot. Di ba? Lahat na pwede nating maisip, especially during Christmas, kakaroon ng dami, mas maraming training. I'm sure marami ring nai-invest yung gobyerno, pero bakit ganon? We seem not to be able to, we seem to not be improving in terms of really implementing policies, at least in this index by, or at least in this study by Andrews. So, right. Sige. And a lot of scholars, in a way, tried to explain this phenomenon. And we can only understand this if we're able to have a grasp of, public administration theories. Starting, of course, with the classic bureaucracy by Max Weber, wherein the government is seen as a hierarchical system, impersonal rules. There's a politics administration dichotomy. But after that, we see the prominence of neoclassical theories. So may human aspects here. We try to understand yung needs. May mga theories dyan, hygiene theory X and Y. But basically here in neoclassical, we see there's a greater emphasis on on humans and how motivations, etc., can affect the performance of the organizations. But come 1970s, because of many perhaps political and economic exigencies like the 1973 oil crisis, we saw a greater push for the shift towards greater market participation in governance. So a lot of public capabilities were outsourced to private sector. We saw what not ano pa ba? We saw privatization, di ba? Dati kasi during 1960s, prominent yung state-owned enterprises. But come 1970s with Thatcher and Reagan, umusbong yung so-called new public governance. And then political science, we in a way related to sa so-called neoliberalism. But after 1970s, 1980s, nagkaroon ng more push or emphasis on networks, particularly lalo na doon sa sinatawag na good governance. So, and this is manifested in a new public governance paradigm. So this is a more broad paradigm that really just says that, it's not just the government, but also, governing is not just the responsibility of the government, but also of other actors like civil society and private businesses. So, but, as going back, yung problema ng pag-diminish ng ating state capability is usually ascribed to the intellectual dominance of the new public management and in a way yung private sector emphasis of governing. So in economics, in political science, we have the public choice theory. In public ad, we have the reinventing by Osborne, Gabler, and Hood. In a way, yung good governance, although hindi naman necessarily about public or private sector ang good governance, but somehow many of its values like accountability, transparency are geared towards fiscal. So it facilitates market. Some critics seem to argue that. So, and here, just to really be more concrete, yung state capacity is blamed doon sa NPM reforms, new public management, because it reduced administrative capacities through, the focus on cost efficiency, short-term measurable impacts, and then this so-called conservative anti-statism wherein meron tayong skepticism towards government, and in particular the public servants. So this seemed to resemble this phenomenon of self-fulfilling prophecy. So dahil di na tayo naniniwala na ang gobyerno ay capable of effectuating change because of these theories in economics and other political science, ang nangyayari, hindi na rin talaga kumbaga nagiging totoo yung paniniwala natin. So, if we believe something, then most likely ito yung nangyayari. And that's what happened in the context of, NPM and state capability. So now, ano ngayon? Paano to related sa HR? So what then can we do? So may magandang quote si Albright, Secretary Albright, who has just recently passed sometime in 2022. She said that we're taking or tackling 21st century challenges with 20th century's ideas and 19th century tools. So now, paano ba? So may mga scholars really that pushes for the reversal of the NPM reforms, quote unquote reforms. So by the way, this is a picture of Francis Fukuyama, who is an academic hero. He wrote many things about state building, but he's really known for the end of history na medyo ayaw na, he himself is really critical of it as of now. So, but anyway, a lot of political economists would think that there's really no need to reinvent the wheel, but there is really a need to be really innovative and creative. So by saying na not really needed yung reinvention of the wheel, we mean to say na lahat naman nakikita niyo yung mga values na hindi naman hindi naman bago yan, di ba? We want an agile government. We want an accountable government. We want collaboration. We need to focus on more on outcomes, performance, um, and simplification of government procedures. And in a way, we have this with ease of doing business, etc. And finally, we need to capacitate civil servants. This seemingly to be really uh, commonsensical eh. Pero at the same time, even if it's commonsensical, for the past 30 years, at least in the sphere of governance and public administration, um, na-undermine yung state capability because of this deliberate outsourcing of capability to the private sector. So yun yung naging problema ng maraming governments throughout the world. And also the West, like the United States. So, nasan tayo? Here, so basically this book is just saying that, we need more long-term capacity development as opposed to, just contractualization, di ba? Mga ganon. Kasi walang public service ethos na nabibuild when you just rely on contractualization, job order, COS, etc. So we need to really bring back these basics, but at the same time to rethink on how we can further agile and collaborative and innovative government. But capabilities are done by doing. So again, going back, kung naniniwala ka na hindi mangyayari yun, hindi mo talaga gagawin yun. So hindi ka rin mapapractice in turn. So, but all this really is what we really need here is that we need leadership and political will in order for us to exact this. That's why we need to be, in a way, informed. There is possibility beyond the template that we currently have today. So now, babalikan natin kung paano siya related sa HR. So now we've, in a way, tackled yung state capacity level, your state level. But again, we all know that the state affects the individuals and the people that run the government. So with that, I have this question. What skills and mindset should a public servants have in order for us to have that kind of government? We want to have a transformative government. We want to have a government that is responsive to the needs of our 110 million countrymen and women. Okay. Bagal yung ito. Okay. So here, ano ba yung mga skills na kailangan in the future? But before we can answer that, we have to address yung konteksto. Konteksto. Kung ano yung mga problema. Similar to what we had, yung contextualization muna in the context of state. So here we see different issues, and they are grouped in terms of people, power, technology, economy. But basically, it just in the interest of time, it just reflects yung kanina mga binabanggit nating mga problema. So ito yung mga at the individual level kinakaharap or mga trends, societally, politically, environmentally, technologically. So I don't need perhaps to elaborate on this, given that Ms. Flo has already touched this, even the dean has already touched this, and in my initial part of presentation, I've tackled it to some extent. But yeah, so here, given na yun yung problema, ano yung mga skills na kailangan ng ating public servants? So this is now in a way contextualized sa mga public servants. So Ehlers and Kellerman in 2019 identified 3 dimensions of so-called future skills. First, they need autonomy. I mean, we have this broad categorization of subject, which is the individual's personal capacity for self-directed learning. So lumalabas na ulit yung nabanggit ni Ms. Flo that we need greater emphasis on lifelong learning because pabago-bago yung needs of the time. So yung needs today might be really different 5 years from now. So then another categorization is object dimension. So this refers to the capability of individuals to interact with task and technology encompassing agility, creativity, tolerance for ambiguity, digital literacy, and ability to be reflective. And finally, we have this categorization of, broad category of social. So public administrators, public managers, policymakers, leaders need to have the skills of sense making, as well as they have to have the mindset of futurists. So recently we have this burgeoning. It's not hindi na nga burgeoning. Medyo prevalent na yung yung um yung area or the study of futurism, with future studies, with future etc. So we are in a way, some of the especially colleagues from NCPAG are now retooling public administrator to have tools in order for them to expect, anticipate, prepare for the future. So another social skill that is very important in the context of public servants is cooperation and communication. So all these, according to our scholar, are needed in order for public servants to navigate the complexities of today's VUCA environment, or more particularly VUCA governance landscape. So, right. Balikan din natin yung nabanggit ni Miss Flo, and I feel this is very relevant. And this is not just relevant, again, in the private sector, but also in the public sector. Although, of course, there is distinction between the public and the private. And siguro ang pinaka-obvious doon is that the public is usually behind what is the private is adopting. But again, because of critical junctures like the COVID-19, napabilis po yung adoption of different trends like AI, flexible work arrangements like yun nga, work from home, flexible. And now the fact that I can be here in Japan and discuss with you is a product of that greater acceptance and adoption of these modern or more nascent tools. So again, ito po yung mga skills na banggit na ito ni Ms. Flo. Kasi nga parang yung AI could really replace clerical tasks. So there's need to put more emphasis on analytical, creative skills, self-awareness, and whatnot. Pero kung titignan po natin, siguro what is really striking to me is the idea of empathy. This is very important in among public servants. And yeah, ano pa mo kailangan sabihin? I mean, very crucial itong empathy because ayoko lang magpatama pero marami po sa atin na hindi marunong makinig. Although kung may nakikinig, tumatagos lang sa kabilang tenga. Anyway, wala tayong gusto patamaan pero nangyayari po talaga yun. Skills on the rise. So again, bumabalik tayo sa creativity, analytical skills. And again, lifelong learning seem to have a high regard in today's age because ang bilis talaga ng needs, pagbabago-bago ng needs ng industry. And I feel ganun din yung magiging trend sa public sector eh. Kasi hindi naman divorce yung problema ng society talaga, I mean ng private sector sa mga problema rin ng public sector. So 7 siguro is crucial, AI. So with a lot of may mga tools na rin talaga in public governance or in governance that really needs AI and big data. For instance, in evidence-based policy making, parang kailangan siyang, I mean, this is really needed. Systems thinking, the ability to actually harmonize different sectors, concerns, needs, etc., are really needed because mas complex in today's landscape. But again, yung sinasabi kasi ng World Economic Forum might be really broad, more general. But there are scholars who have written that about this in the context of developing world. So I personally feel that iiba yung need ng developing world as compared to the rest or the minority, which is the global north. So here may pine-prescribe si Dickinson and Sullivan around 2014, maybe na-update na to more recently. But I still feel that despite this has been published a decade ago, relevant pa rin ito. For example, basically, ang gusto niyo lang sabihin dito na it's not enough for us, for public servants to be technical, but also the complexities of that time call for soft skills or emotion work as what they called it. So babalik tayo dun sa empathy di ba? So the number might say this, but iba yung impact nito socially. So these kinds of dilemmas must be navigated by the modern 21st century kind of public leaders and servants. So, ano ba? Ayan, siguro isa-isahin din natin, collaborative, may empath, he's an empath. He needs to know how to manage resources. Siguro ito rin, another crucial is he or she needs to be um, smart or adept in the political sector or the political process because in the past years or decades, yung public administration education seems to divorce politics and public administration. And recently, Guy Peters in 2022 called for the reunification, so to speak, of these two seemingly distinct or previously distinct disciplines. So, in order for a bureaucrat to be or public servant to be responsive, he or she knows how to be an entrepreneur and how to push for certain policies, even if he or she just a bureaucrat. So again, in terms of technology naman, one has to be tech savvy and one has to be really a knowledge broker. And all this is possible if you constantly retool, reskill, and be a lifelong learner. Here, yung mga nabanggit kanina is really indicative of this idea of Dreschler, Catel, and Caro, which is the bureaucracy hacker. So may cool way of putting this. They have this cool way of putting this idea. So in particular, hackers are those highly skilled in navigating existing bureaucracy and political networks. So again, going back, it's not enough na technically knowledgeable siya about the technical side of bureaucracy or governing, but also one has to be politically savvy, marunong siya mag-advocacy, marunong siyang alam niya kung saan lalapit for them or for us to be really effective. So that's what is needed in this particular time or at this present moment. So, and Gaudbaud and Conin said that hackers are problem solvers. And hindi naman siya negative, but for them, kakibat din siguro nito yung pagiging unique, innovative, and they call this disruptive, productively, and curious. So, public entrepreneur or bureaucracy hackers, again, just to summarize, dapat meron siyang tendency to hindi siya nakakulong sa isang box. So he or she or they must have this thirst for innovation. Kasi 21st century problems cannot be solved by previous tools and knowledge. So here at UPOU, we seem to foster this through at hindi pa naman to implemented, but our Faculty of Management and Development Studies is contemplating on releasing this one. So lahat ng mga philosophy or values na na-mention kanina are taken in consideration when we thought of this program called LeadX. So leading with ethics and agility through digital transformation. So kanina nabanggit yung lifelong learning. And we all know that, public servants are very busy. Sometimes they're in the field, sometimes they need to handle various or numerous responsibilities, and learning can only be done through a flexible manner. So yung flexible manner na yan is really expressed through micro-credentials, through the Open University, My Portal, and etc. Um, and yung mismong content ng LeadX na ating dinidevelop or dinidevelop ng MPM program as led by Ma'am Reg, it focuses not just, of course, on the technical, yung basic, classic kind of public administration, but also geared towards building skills for future thinking, foresight, digital transformation. So ito yung mga trends na kinakaharap ng ating public servants. But also yung ethics. So we made it a point that we teach ethics because we see ethics is really a part and parcel, or not just a part and parcel, but also in the most instrumental part of empathy or emphatic kind of governance. So another initiative by us, by the Faculty of Management and Development Studies, is the UPOU Prime, which is a collaborative effort between the UPOU, FMDS, and the Local Government Academy of the DILG. So we made use of the open distance e-learning platform, wherein it fostered, it's more flexible. So we had, synchronous sessions, but also most of the courses was conducted asynchronously. So it catered to the demands of the learners because many of them are at the mga director na yan eh. And many of them are also nasa field. That's why very busy. So we made it a point na dapat flexible yung aming way of disseminating or at least conducting the class or the course. So another really important feature of the Prime program was this idea of learning by doing. So it's not enough that we teach them, top down. Kasi we feel that hindi effective yun eh. So, and we sort of like observe that with proper mentoring, they were able to craft their own respective research agenda. So, we sometimes met them outside the confines of the usual 8 to 5 or when hindi lang sa platform but also kunyari outside like Zoom, we constantly in touch with them to mentor, and if they have questions, we Doc Leo and Ma'am Reg and I and other collaborators of the Prime program are there to respond to the LGA attendees or participants. So again, the key here is also that yung programa is a product of co-development. So hindi lang ito because maraming communication, may effort lang, but from the get-go, we're involved in developing. They're telling us the problems, and then we are responding kung ano yung mga problema rin as well sa mga gusto nila mangyari. And somehow, because of this kind of yung constant communication, we're able to craft a program that is responsive and that is geared towards building the future skills of our public servants. So here, I'm going to be concluding in a way. So just to wrap up with regard to what I have discussed for this session or this morning, in terms of macro, I'm going to be dissecting my conclusion again, in terms of how political economists would do this. So we will discuss first the macro, and in conclusion, in terms of macro, we need to have a paradigm shift in terms of the role of the government for us. Kasi I feel, ito siguro nagiging malabo na ako, but I personally feel that we will never be able to tackle our problems, effectively if we don't change our mindset of how or what is the role of the public servants and state in you know in dealing with certain development problems. So it has to start with that, the macro. So in terms of paradigm shift, there must be a rethink of how we do reforms. So we need to rethink the practice of contractualization. So I'm not really saying that we go full anti-contractualization, but it has to be really revisited. So if kunwari kasi maraming ahensya sa atin na are engaging employees as COS and as JOs, but parang they're functioning as if they are regular employees. So imagine that. So in many countries internationally din, ganun din yung nararanasan nilang problema. So another key macro concern, or at least recommendation na lang siguro, is that we need the government, or we need to provide space to the government to fail. So this is really not so usual kind of recommendation, but giving leeway for governments to fail really can build capacities. Kasi minsan yung learning can only happen in the context of failing. But hindi dapat hindi dapat aksaya yung pagiging fail, but may ways naman yan in the literature na baka pwede natin pag-usapan in different venues. So in terms of micro, we need to prepare our public servants with not just technical skills, but also social and public service ethos, reflecting na yung bagong paradigm shift na sinasabi ko kanina. So, and finally, we need to capitalize on existing demographic and technological trends. For example, we all know that Gen Z has limited attention span, and we need to to make our learning materials more palatable for them. Because, as mentioned by Miss Flo, papalitan ng mga Gen Z ng generation ko, Gen Z, yung yung workforce soon. So anyway, sige, let me just end with this quotation from a American novelist. To be normal is to be mediocre. So we have to dare to be different, and life and development, siguro i-paraphrase ko na lang. Development belongs to the rare, exceptional individual who dares to be different. So on that note po, I would want to end my discussion on what does it take to be a 21st century public servants in the context of developing country like the Philippines. So maraming salamat po.
Ayan. Thank you very much, Sir LA, for that very comprehensive and very insightful discussion. For our participants, both online and here on site, you may now prepare your questions for our speakers. Now on to our last speaker for today. He is an alumnus of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Human Ecology and Master of Science in Development Management and Governance, major in Organizational and Institutional Development. He is a human resources professional recruiting global talents for international organizations for more than 12 years now. He is currently affiliated with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, based in Beijing, China, as Senior Human Resources Officer. Prior to AIIB, he also served as HR at the United Nations Green Climate Fund, based in Incheon, South Korea, and the International Rice Research Institute, or Erie in Los Baños. Mr. Hipolito is also a distinguished alumnus awardee of the UPLB College of Human Ecology 2022 for organizational development and public service. Joining us live via Zoom to discuss shaping the future of work in the nonprofit sector, skills, sustainability, and human-centric HR. Let's all give Sir Brian Carlo Hipolito a warm round of applause. Sir Brian?
Maraming salamat sa UPOU Faculty of Management and Development Studies for organizing today's webinar. Grabe, no? Siksik, liglig at umaapaw ang ating learnings ngayong umaga in the realm of people and culture, human resources management. Now, we have heard the contexts on the future of work for the private sector. We've also heard Sir L.A. on the groundwork and the context very nicely laid out for us in the public sector. Now, on this third and last segment, what I'll try to delve all of us into is the context, the challenges, and also looking forward how to make the nonprofit sector or the voluntary sector future ready, and how to equip those HR professionals or those workers who would be interested in venturing in nonprofit or the international sector, voluntary sector world or realm, what would be the challenges they would face given today's circumstances, and what would make them resilient, right, and ready skills-wise. With that, let me share my screen. Okay. So the topic given to me is for the future of work in the nonprofit sector. So what's the nonprofit sector first and foremost? So nonprofit sector, as the name suggests, these are voluntary organizations that have been built not to gain profit, but more mission-oriented. So these are the types of, let's say, local NGOs, United Nations, and other international organizations. So we'll discuss three things in the nature of work for the nonprofit sector. What are the challenges that the nonprofit sector is currently facing? So we'll lay the groundwork on that first to set the context. Second, we will then discuss how to future-proof the sector, the voluntary sector, amidst those challenges that they're facing. And then number three, I'll offer some of my thoughts in terms of how to make professionals in the nonprofit voluntary sector become more resilient and let's say more marketable, given all these challenges. Right. So with that, let's start with the first segment. What are the challenges and constraints? So to lay the groundwork for the discussion of future of work in the nonprofit sector, it's very important for us to understand the unique HR challenges nonprofits face. And because these challenges shape how the sector reacts, how they can attract, how they can develop, and how they can retain their talent while staying true to its mission. The very distinct feature of nonprofit, it's mission driven. People are drawn into joining these organizations because of the mission. Earning money is another factor, but mission really is what draws people to join them. And the first challenge of nonprofit sector would be always about resources, right? Because nonprofits, they often operate on limited budgets. they're heavily reliant on grants, donations, or external funding. So this financial pressure, it really impacts HR's ability to offer more competitive salaries as compared to private sector, more competitive benefits as compared to other sectors. So it's making it more difficult to attract and retain top talent. So many nonprofits, they often struggle to compete with the private sector where better pay and growth opportunities are more readily available. So because of the resource constraints, a lot of nonprofits, they experience high employee turnover because of financial dissatisfaction, and they have limited investment in professional development, training, and staff well-being initiatives. So that's at least the more obvious challenges the nonprofit sector faces. Another challenge that the sector faces in the nonprofit sector, voluntary sector, would be the evolving workplace expectations. Right? What are those evolving expectations? It's now heightened because of the recent pandemic, recently frequent typhoons that we have experienced. Now, at least our two speakers have spoken heavily about emergence of AI. It's also affecting the nonprofit and also the subsequent shifts in the work culture, also because of the intergenerational composition of our workforce. Right now, we have four different generations being comprised in the workforce, right? Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, and then there's another one. I forgot the other, but there are four generations, no, now composed in the workforce. So the evolving workforce expectations, nonprofit organizations are normally they normally lack the infrastructure to implement the models to evolve to adjust in these expectations. No, for example, flexible or hybrid work models. Sometimes it's very easy for private sector because they operate in more let's say more city and more dense areas. But mission-oriented organizations, sometimes it's very hard to do hybrid work setup, especially if you don't have connectivity and internet reliability on more remote areas or provinces where the nonprofit sector would usually operate. So that's a challenge, right? Private sector probably it's easy to implement remote, but that's a challenge for the nonprofit, especially when on the nature, on the location where they operate. And then going into that, since we have touched it a bit already, the digital divide and technology adoption, right? The nonprofit sector has increasingly recognized the transformative potential of digital technologies, of course. We cannot deny the evolving technological advances. However, this digital divide, the gap between organizations who can afford and effectively use digital tools are very glaring to those organizations who cannot afford it, especially grassroots organizations, right? And it also poses significant challenges to a lot of these voluntary organizations. So limited funding prevents many nonprofits from investing in modern tools and softwares because these softwares are not cheap as well. Especially if you're in a sector where you're heavily reliant on just donors and grants, right? So their staff may lack the skills needed to effectively use new technologies, leading to underutilization of such tools. So, especially in remote or underdeveloped regions, poor internet connectivity and outdated equipments would exacerbate the divide, right? So these are three most common challenges that the nonprofit voluntary sector actually faces. Now, given those challenges, we go now to our second pillar, how we can then prepare, how we can then make the nonprofit sector, voluntary sector, future ready, right? I would offer maybe four key areas where right now I can see some international organizations and nonprofits starting to implement. But the nonprofit sector's future of work is currently being shaped by these four main areas, right? So number one would be green HR practices, sustainability as a core focus. Nonprofits being mission oriented, they're easily expected to lead on sustainability. That's already given, especially embedding environmental values into their workforce policies and practices. So, one of which is eco-friendly workplaces, right? Transitioning a lot of organizations, not only nonprofits, but even private sector, they started to transition into paperless systems, energy efficient office spaces. Some would even, some nonprofits or some even private sector companies would even have solar generated or renewable energy efficient offices, more virtual meetings to minimize their carbon footprints. They're very also wary about their travels, adoption of green procurement policies for office supplies and travel. So the eco-friendly workplaces is now becoming a thing, right? The momentum is there, which is good as well as our contribution to the climate agenda. Another thing would be sustainable workforce policies. A lot of companies are encouraging now remote work to reduce commuting. It's not only offering flexibility to the staff itself, but come to think about it, it's also helping companies or even individuals contribute reducing the commute time, and reducing commute time meaning contributing to lessening its emissions. So if you need to drive to work, you need to travel for work, it's also helping reducing carbon emissions, right? So you still have that sustainability at the core of those policies. And some organizations would provide benefits like green commuting allowances or incentivizing employees to use public transportation or bicycles. For example, us in the Green Climate Fund, my previous organization in South Korea, GCF would give free bicycles to all of our staff. Even our directors, even all of us would actually use the bike daily to go to work, which is a good incentive. Instead of them buying their own bicycles, we would give it to them so that we encourage our staff to use, to exercise as well. It's also good for their health. So yeah, green HR practices are the first one, low hanging fruit, I would say, that not only nonprofits could utilize, but even the other sectors such as private and public sector. The next one, it's given because we hear a lot of the remote and hybrid work models, flexibility becoming a norm, right? Not only making the workforce, let's say, flexible in terms of where they want to work. The other aspect of this, especially in the nonprofits, is the multi-location talent pools. Remember, in the nonprofit sector, voluntary sector, which is mainly grassroots, you wouldn't really expect people to be in an office setup regularly. They should be always in the respective communities. There's always grassroots, right? And the hybrid work models, it allows a lot of nonprofit organizations to do multi-location talent pools. nonprofits can now hire talent from anywhere, enabling access to a more diverse and skilled workforce without geographic limitations, without forcing them to come to the city, because they really need them to be on the ground anyway. So we call that contingent workforce. To be active, especially you need a contingent workforce to be activated on crisis situations or urgent tasks. For example, typhoons. We see a lot of nonprofits or international organizations using contingent workforce activated in times where you need someone to respond right away on the ground when there are typhoons. In typhoons, time is really of the essence. You need people on the ground to mobilize your relief, to mobilize all of your rescue efforts. So this hybrid work arrangement make it easier for nonprofits to include individuals, especially from local communities, underrepresented or marginalized communities, to be part of their cause, maintaining. But the challenge on the hybrid work models is that because people are really spread across different locations, sometimes maintaining team cohesion is a challenge, right? Binding them in a common culture because they don't really interact with each other in a common workplace, workstation. Sometimes it's hard to establish cohesion within the team. And also the digital divide, ensuring that they have equal access to technology, especially remote areas, especially in the Philippines. It's very hard to achieve, especially that we have problems in connectivity, right? So that's the only drawback. The third one would be adoption of new technologies, right? How do nonprofits, really good nonprofit voluntary sector organizations use AI these days? They use these technologies. We have seen it a lot in especially crisis or humanitarian organizations. For example, data-driven decision making. We have organizations who can use now real-time data to track crises and prioritize resources effectively. Especially they need to move goods and relief to where it's most needed. For example, GIS mapping for tracking flood-affected regions, and they need to coordinate relief. So data-driven decision making is very important for that. And also AI and predictive analytics. For AI and predictive analytics, there are now models and tools who can predict crisis impacts, produce valuations, how much effect or who would be needing relief most, and guide preparedness strategies. So using advanced weather data, anticipate typhoon paths, that would guide a lot of nonprofits in terms of sending logistics in advance, sending people, sending relief goods in advance, so that they can respond to the local communities that they serve. So usually that's best practice for nonprofits on how they can adopt the new technologies. And then this is really interesting as well, how adoption of new technologies are being used in the nonprofit sector. They use a lot of really good organizations use it for donor engagement and outreach, because right now, because of AI, some nonprofits, they use AI to predict which donors are likely to contribute, and they can identify now potential high value donors, enabling nonprofits to focus their efforts effectively. So they can now use analysis of donor behaviors and preferences. AI can even personalize communication and engagement strategies. You would have donors online, you would have donors within your network. So AI can now suggest tailored donation options or follow up based on donors' past contributions. So they're able to map out. You can use the technology to really ramp up fundraising, right? And that's a really good adoption of the technology because it enables nonprofits to really keep up and really establish good relationships with its different layers of donors, like low value donors who would give um, online via Gcash or Paymaya. You would have high value donors, which are corporates, high value clients, high value personalities, whom the nonprofits could engage, and nonprofits could do that in using technology at scale, using predictive technologies, and they don't have to manually sort out all of those. AI could actually do it for them, and therefore they could now fundraise much better, especially crisis situations. You need the resources right away. You cannot wait for financing to be delivered to you in a week. Sometimes you need the financing right away so that you can send it directly to communities. So AI can now be used in donor engagement and outreach so that not only generating the analysis, but also using social media to spread the news so that you can mobilize more people to contribute to your cause. Right, so that's a really, really interesting adoption of new technologies in fundraising. And then the last one would be building resilience, right? As they say, resilience is the 21st century skill, right? It has become a cornerstone for nonprofits because nonprofits are always faced with challenges, right? It faces growing challenges from different phases: global disruptions, pandemics, climate-related disasters, financial instability, political crises. So these different events highlight the importance of preparing organizations like these, especially their workforce, to adapt, recover, and continue delivering their mission, right? So, building resilience would require crisis preparedness and rapid response, right? Effective nonprofits, they often serve as the first responders during crises, right? Making preparedness critical to their relevance and effectiveness, right? So building resilience in nonprofits would be developing contingency plans, right? Creating detailed plans for different crisis scenarios. So, for example, there are a lot of good NGOs in typhoon-prone areas are pre-positioning supplies and establishing their local community evacuation protocols, and they're ready with their local contingent workforce. They know that, okay, they would have local contacts whom they can pay on daily basis to respond to crisis when needed, right? They don't need to retain them, but they would activate those people to respond, and they could pay them daily wage. Establishing emergency funds, right? Not because there are no crises, you would stop fundraising. You would need to continuously build financial reserves to sustain your operations, especially during disruptions. You don't fundraise when the calamity is already there, right? Some nonprofits, they maintain emergency grants to quickly mobilize their resources for affected communities, right? And the COVID pandemic and the recent typhoons, back-to-back typhoons, I think 2 months ago in the Philippines, they really showed the nonprofit sector the need for agility, the need to shift to remote operations, and the need to deliver virtual services to address those urgent needs, right? Now, to be future ready, what do we then equip, right? Our workforce in the nonprofit sector to be effective, right? This is primarily these three skills as a last segment to my talk is really geared towards nonprofits. Maybe other sectors could benefit as well. So number one of which I think is really important for the voluntary sector nonprofit, would be effective storytelling, right? Because effective storytelling is a critical skill for engaging stakeholders. Nonprofits are mission oriented. You need effective storytelling to raise your brand, to raise your mission, and you need to engage different stakeholders, right? Stakeholders from your donors, right? You need storytelling to tell donors that they need to contribute to your mission, right? Because you have communities to serve. You need to engage them regularly, not only when there are crises, but also when you want to prepare for future crises. I mean, we can predict when typhoons come in the Philippines. So 6 months in advance, you need storytelling, engaging your donors, give us resources to be prepared. Because June, July, we know there's going to be a lot of typhoons happening. We need the resources. We need your help. And you just don't ask money and that's it. You need storytelling to drive emotions, right? Bridging data and emotion, because you cannot fundraise without inciting emotions to your stakeholders, right? They won't give you money to support your cause if they don't see the need for them to give you money, right? For example, with the Green Climate Fund, we use a lot of stories to drive impact. Sometimes we would show, let's say, a farmer whose livelihood will be saved through resistant crops, right? We need to show data showing 50% increase in agricultural yield in the region. Therefore, grants are really needed to continue those kind of projects, right? So you really need to engage donors and stakeholders, crafting narratives, crafting success stories, crafting emotional stories that will demonstrate the tangible impact of their funding aligning with the donor priorities, right? And also amplifying the voices of your beneficiaries. How many people have benefited your cause? How many people have given scholarships? How many people have been given homes because of your cause, because of their contribution? Even they only donated 100 peso or 1,000 peso or 1 million peso, this is where your money goes, and you need to continue to build that narrative and awareness so that they continue supporting you financially, right? So effective storytelling would be the key skill of effective nonprofits. That's number one. Number two of the three, we're almost wrapping up: digital literacy and technological proficiency, right? Yes, you need effective storytelling. You need this second pillar to deliver your story, right? We know that, especially Filipinos, everyone's on their phones, right? Everyone's glued to their phones. For your story to be delivered to your right audience, you need your nonprofit voluntary sector staff should have the right digital literacy and the right technological proficiency to execute the stories, to execute your narratives. It needs to reach your audience, right? Effective storytelling is not enough if you're not delivering the story, because your audience will not see it, they won't hear it, and they won't make an action of giving you resources if the stories are not delivered to them, right? So this complements each other: storytelling and digital literacy, right? Data driven decision making, right? Nonprofits should need to rely on data to assess their program outcomes, right? Identify areas where they need more financing and improvement, and they need to really demonstrate impact to stakeholders because their stakeholders have a lot of options where they can put their money, right? Why would they put their money to this nonprofit, to your nonprofit, right? So you could use tools like Tableau or any others to visualize disease outbreak patterns, for example, right? Enabling targeted interventions in high risk areas, right? Where there are high risk of malaria, high risk of dengue, or if it's within the health sector that your voluntary sector organization is facing, right? You can use, for example, us in AIIB, we use economic modeling tools to evaluate the feasibility and expected ROI of our infrastructure projects, right? So that we can show to our donors, which are governments, this is where their taxpayers go. We've been building infrastructure projects on these developing countries who really need it most, right? And again, digital marketing tools, like there are plenty, Google Analytics, HubSpot, MailChimp, etc. These allow nonprofits to segment their audience and tailor their outreach campaigns, right? You need AI algorithms who can predict donor behaviors and recommend personalized fundraising strategies, right? For example, a nonprofit could use donor management software to identify which segment of their follower base are high potential donors, and they can send customized thank you emails, increasing donor retention rates, right? Once they have given you financing donations, the engagement doesn't stop there. You need to go back to them, re-engage them, tell them thank you for their donation. This is where your money went. And we hope to have a continuing relationship with you because typhoons never end today. It will be happening tomorrow. Pandemics is a future threat. We need to continue engaging with one another, right? So that's really key, right? Magkapatid dito, storytelling and digital literacy. And then the last pillar would be cross-cultural competence, right? Nonprofits, they often operate across diverse geographic, cultural, and socio-economic contexts, right? Especially for the context like the Philippines, where we have a lot of islands. So cross-cultural competence is the ability to understand, communicate, and collaborate effectively with individuals from different cultural backgrounds, right? Nonprofits would have layers of stakeholders, donors, local communities, and beneficiaries, right? You cannot just intervene and go to local communities thinking, this is what they need, this is what we will give. And it's not a cookie cut approach where all communities would need the same. You need to be, as a staff in nonprofit, you would need to have the cultural competence to navigate the nuances of different communities. Sometimes different provinces would have different contexts, different pamahiin, right? Or different values, right? So you need to be very careful, right? People working in voluntary sector would need to be trained on understanding cultural norms that will ensure that their programs will be well received and impactful, right? You just don't go to the communities and force them that this is what they need without understanding their context, right? Also, you need this competence to build partnerships, to negotiate, right? Because partnerships with governments, NGOs, even private sector, it really require cultural awareness to align your goal and to foster mutual respect, right? So cross-cultural negotiation builds long-term relationships. That's key, right? And then it's also important in your program design and delivery, right? Organizations who fail to consider cultural nuances, they have the risk of being irrelevant, even counterproductive, yeah. Culturally sensitive design ensures programs resonate with local communities, right? Even if it's as simple as a vaccination program, you need multi-layered cultural sensitive implementation because different communities would be having different receptions to it, right? So yeah, I think those are the three key, at least in the voluntary sector, essential skills that's must have for the next generation. I would say voluntary sector, nonprofit sector staff for the sector to continuously be relevant in the changing times of today. So with that, thank you so much. I hope I have given you a perspective on the voluntary sector in terms of the skills, the challenges, and how to future-proof these respective organizations in their operations. Maraming salamat po.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sir Brian, for that very thought-provoking discussion on how to future ready our workforce from the voluntary or the nonprofit sector. Now we would like to open the floor for your questions. Whether you are in the public sector, private or voluntary, feel free to share your inquiries. You can submit your questions to our facilitators at the back wearing green, or you can raise your hand, introduce yourself, and direct your questions to our speakers. For our online viewers, we'd also like to hear from you as well. Just introduce yourself and post your questions in the comment or chat box on your streaming platform, and we will make sure that they will get answered. Now, may we request our speakers to turn on their cameras for this part of the program. Thank you, Ms. Flo. Thank you, Sir L.A. And Sir Brian. Question time. Okay. Okay, so we have question here on site.
Good morning and thank you very much to our speakers. I'm Reg from UP Open University. I'd like to ask the three of you, brilliant minds, what can you advise young people who are still trying to find their spot under the sun? They're trying to think of what they're good at, what they like doing, what the community needs or what the nation needs, and what could, bring food on the table. So how can you help them or advise them to balance these career choices? Thank you very much.
Si Ma'am Blo po muna siguro.
Good question, Miss Reg. Okay, my advice to young people, this is my advice all the time, is find out what you're good at. And what you're good at, you already know what it is. Where you're naturally inclined. And then intersect that with what you want, your dreams for the future, whether that's corporate career or a job in a nonprofit. And then be kind to yourself. Just start where you can and grow from there. Sometimes with my experience, my personal experience is I started out with a course in political science. I was supposed to become a lawyer. But somewhere along my career, I realized that I really want to be a trainer. I like to talk. I like to share ideas. So eventually I got into training. I got into ESL and my career blossomed from there. From a trainer, I became an HR person. I eventually became the HR director. And my career didn't stop there. I became general manager, country representative, and now I own my business, and I became an entrepreneur. And I also help other entrepreneurs through the associations that I lead. So what I can say is just follow your heart, follow your passion, and it will really lead you to where you're supposed to be. Don't be too hard on yourself, especially when you're young. Explore, travel. Travel is education. It will open your mind to the endless possibilities that the world can offer. So there you go. Just start it.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Flo. Maybe Sir LA wants to answer next.
Yeah, oo. Mahirap na tanong kasi iba-iba naman tayo eh, di ba? To use the word by Sir Brian, there's no cookie cutter template in this one. But maybe I just want to share my experience with regard to how I found my quote unquote passion. Um, I was a music major when I entered UP. And to some extent, marunong naman ako pero hindi ako yung kagalingan. That's why may natural order of things naman that would say na, hey, you might want to explore something. So while I was exploring, I was taking massive online courses from Coursera. So I tried different stuff. For example, international law, maritime security. Pero hindi ko masyado type yung international eh. So ngayon, and then I found yung development governance, so development policy. So doon ako talagang na-mesmerize. And talagang nag-peak ng aking interest. So whenever people ask kung paano ko daw na-discover yung interest ko, I always answer yung feeling na may bagong Marvel movie na lalabas. So in the case of my passion, may lumalabas na may impending release of a journal article. And na-excite ako. So doon ko na-realize na hey, baka nerd talaga ako, ito yung gusto kong gawin. So might as well just do this in most of my professional life. So doon ko na-discover. Siguro tama si Ma'am Flo eh. You have just to find your reason for existence. In my case, I found it through to the massive online courses. So this is a very UPOU way of kind of answering.
All right.
Thank you, Sir LA. Si Sir Brian po.
Yes, no, just to summarize, no, that especially we have a lot of students in the audience who's taking HR. Hello, sa mga CHRA students. I think to summarize, Sir LA, Miss Flo, it's really important to find your why. And I think finding your why, there's no cookie cutter approach. Everyone would find their whys very differently. I think my take would be to make more mistakes. Commit a lot of mistakes, but as you commit more mistakes, don't repeat the same mistakes, because committing mistakes would then give you more learnings and would make you become more resilient, diba? Up to a point, wala na magpapaiyak sa'yo dahil you have committed almost all this. Your 20s, I always say this, especially to students, your 20s is your gate pass to explore and to get to know yourself and to really commit as much mistakes as you can, because that will really equip you, that will really help you realize what you really want and what you don't really want to accomplish in life. So find your why, commit more mistakes, don't be afraid to explore. I think that's the general take for from the three of us. I'm sure all of us, three of us, have committed enough of those mistakes that has brought us where we are today. So for the students in the audience, make sure your 20s are worthwhile. Do not box yourself. Explore. The world is your oyster, right? Commit more mistakes and dream more about achieving goals.
Thank you very much, Sir Brian. We have a question from our online participants. I am JM from the MRDM program. A lot of young people are taking up 2-year associate degrees or tech book degrees, but get rejected by many organizations because many still prefer bachelor's degree holders. What are your insights on this? Anyone po from our speakers can answer.
Let me take this one. Okay, this would have different cultural underpinnings, no? Especially with the labor context in the Philippines. We still have that. Let's not deny it. Let's not be naive as well either. May ganong preference. But if we widen our options, I would tell you, today's generation, especially the youngsters, who's disheartened by this reality. Remember that this generation is the luckiest generation because we have options after options. You don't have to confine yourself to finding jobs in your city, even in your country. You can actually can find much more opportunities if you just widen your scope. I would share to you that a lot of companies based outside the Philippines would even care more about the practical skills that you possess rather than your diploma. I've seen a lot of organizations who wouldn't even ask you for a copy of your TOR or your diploma, who just put you in assessment centers for you to show your skills, technical and practical ones, and would give you a job. So my suggestion, like what Sir LA have done, immerse yourself, equip yourself to as many trainees. There are plenty of free training opportunity. It doesn't even have to be paid trainings to really equip yourself. You have the wealth of Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, free courses out there to really equip yourself. You don't even have to move outside your city. You just probably need to invest in an internet connection, and that's it. You're opening yourself to a wide array of employers, not only in the Philippines, but also globally, who can contract your services or your skills while you're at the comfort of your home, right? So if they're not receptive of your profile, try opportunities from companies who are actually based overseas, and you will realize the value of your skills rather than the value of those degrees, because there are a lot more liberal organizations who would hire you for the skills, not because of your diploma. That's my invitation. I've seen it many times.
Thank you, Sir Brian. Our next question is for Ms. Flo. Let me read the question. Please elaborate further as to why legislators and officials considered as one of the 10 fastest declining jobs. Ma'am Flo.
Okay. I believe this is because a lot of the jobs related to legislation are now also being automated, especially administrative and clerical jobs. And there are a lot of these that are related to legislation or the creation of laws. So with AI becoming more dominant, these roles may not anymore be needed in the future. Though higher functioning roles and tasks like policy making will still definitely be needed in the future. So that's why legislators are included in the declining roles. I think it's really because of the automated or clerical roles related to it.
Thank you, Ma'am Flo. Our next question is for Sir L.A. Considering the current government challenges in the Philippines, do you believe that ambition natin 2040 is still achievable? Sir L.A.?
Paano ko ba i-approach to? As the political economist or as the human resource management guy? So anyway, siguro in a way related to dun sa gusto ko sanang sabihin with regard to the question on the TechVoc, yung seemingly low place of TechVoc and associate degrees in the country. So that is true. That is a very valid concern. A lot of organization prefer someone who graduated 4 years. And lamentable ito. Kasi but that has something to do with the market, the political economy of the country. In particular, demand supply. I feel na kakaunti yung trabaho. That's why talaga ganun yung preference ng industry. Kahit gaano pang incentive yung ibigay mo sa sa organizations or private or NGO, as long as yung the political economy is really onti yung jobs domestically, talagang mahihirapan i-adapt yung yung K-12 nga na sinasabi nila, 'di ba, na once you graduate from K-12, organizations will hire you. So mahirap siya gawin because at the present we have oversupply of college graduates, but not so much supply in terms of job availability. So, and babalikan natin yung ambition natin 2040. I have my fair shares of criticisms on ambition. So, well meant naman siya. I'm sure pinag-isipan, it was a product of deliberation, consultation among different stakeholders, from civil society to the government, to our leaders, to the private sector, etc. But I kind of feel na, as comparative wise, relative to other neighboring countries, the ambition natin 2040 is a bit of, ayokong sabihin sana to, pero we're not dreaming big. Ganun na lang, so to speak. Parang we're not really dreaming of becoming kasi kunyari in the case of Taiwan or Korea, they were able to develop in a short span of time, 30 years. Imagine that, from developing one of the poorest countries in the region to become the most developed in the world today. So, yung ambition natin 2040 is like middle income lang, parang ganun, upper middle income. So hindi ko masabi kung ma-achieve natin yan. Pero kung mababa yung ating target, mas madaling ma-achieve yan. But I'm really expecting more, in terms of sana mas mataas yung ating pangarap. So to answer you shortly, I think achievable. May report naman yung NEDA on the progress of the ambition. I mean, the Philippine Development Plan. But personally, I have my fair shares of criticisms of ambition natin 2040. So I hope na mas mataas pa nga yung ating pangarap eh.
All right, thank you, Sir L.A. Our next question is for Sir Brian. What strategies can nonprofit HR leaders implement to attract and retain talent despite budget constraints?
Okay, this is multi-layered. Again, depends on the nature of the nonprofit operations per se. A lot of nonprofits are now shifting into more salary-based kind of, for example, let's talk about retention and rewards, right? Total rewards. In a typical employment um, relationship, you would get a monthly income, monthly salary contract agreements between the staff and the organization. But a lot of voluntary organizations are now shifting into more delivery based or outcome based reward system where uh, it would incentivize their staff to produce more so they could earn more. They could link that, for example, fundraising people and donor, let's say donor engagement people in voluntary sector, so that they're motivated to do more ways to fundraise money instead of giving them static similar set of salaries. They linked it with the amount of their fundraising driven campaigns in terms of how much they will be paid. That's one. It could be program delivery as well, how many projects they're able to deliver. So rethinking of how we would enter and engage the staff in terms of their total rewards. Why would they continue provide their services to the nonprofit organization they're working for, and also to incite their productivity, to inspire their productivity? A lot of nonprofits are moving into more, let's say, delivery based services, and they're not exclusive to only working for you, allowing them to have multiple, let's say, streams of income at the same time. You don't get into an exclusive contract with the staff. Would be a win-win solution for a lot of nonprofits, because you can activate them, you can deactivate them based on need, based on operations. So yeah, the staff would be able to continuously engage with the organization, but at the same time maintain a certain level of income by allowing himself or herself to engage in others as well. So just rethinking the old model of employment and exploring different ways on how you could reward, like it's a principle of reward, so that you can retain and really ask them to continuously serve your organization. So yeah, that's a bit of my take.
Next question is for Mamplo. Who owns the information? Tools in HR we get out using AI. Will HR have to consider paying royalty fees to AI software providers? Mamplo.
Okay.
Zero.
When talking about AI software or tools for HR, usually these are paid tools because the company pays for them before you can use them. But in general, if you use AI, it depends on, one, the source of the data used for training the AI, and whether the content is factual or creative. Usually, if it's factual, like if you ask AI, where is London? That's a fact. So nobody owns that. Nobody owns that content. But if you ask AI to create something creative, then that will depend on the terms and condition of the AI provider. So always check the AI provider for the terms and conditions. I know some AI tools give you ownership of whatever you create in the tool, but there are also some AI providers that keep that ownership to themselves. So it will really depend on the terms and conditions.
Thank you, Ma'am Flo. This is our last question po. Anyone po from our speakers can answer. There is already a recognition about the significance of diversity, equality and inclusion, and sustainability for organizations. However, these themes remain not in the mainstream of current HRM or D departments in our country. In light of this, how can we entice po organizations to adopt these themes? Anyone po can give an answer.
Siguro, just to answer very, very quickly, the government has policy instruments that can incentivize adoption of such. So, I guess at the local level in QC, meron silang that incentivize, mga SOGI, yung mga non-discrimination kind of thing. Hindi siya masyado geared towards providing financial incentives, but in a way, perhaps it could, yung at least recognition of the government could help. So on that level, meron yung ibang LGU. But I'm not really, I do not know much. Hindi ko pa masyado nakita yung mga policy, but just to answer you very quickly, the government has, policy can induce this kind of, adoption of DEI practices in private, public, and maybe even NGO sector.
Thank you, Sir LA. Sir Brian or Ma'am Flo, would you like to share your insights?
Okay. For the private sector, for companies, for example, inclusivity, AI can actually help usher that. Because for recruitment, for example, if you use AI recruitment tools, these tools do not have blinders. So they don't check your gender, they don't have biases, not as much as humans. So this could actually usher more inclusivity into the workplace. And I mentioned upskilling and reskilling earlier in my presentation. So we really need more of these. Again, AI can help because learning and development can happen faster if we have AI tools to help us. Everything will just become more efficient and effective. So tama rin si Sir LA, you need policy also in the country level, policy even in the company level. If the company has a policy on inclusivity, sustainability, then things will just happen faster from there. So policy plus tools plus technology, I think, can help make everything happen faster for us.
Thank you, Ma'am Flo. Sir Brian, would you like to answer?
For the organizations itself, very quickly, especially now, it's very easy to raise your brand, and you can easily use social media to trend that brand as well. Being an employer who's DEI, let's say DEI friendly, more liberal, can also be a selling point, especially for Gen Z workers or millennial workers. There are workers who are, especially in the nonprofit, who's mission based. It could be used as an employer brand proposition as well. So I think in the Philippines, it requires a transformation of mindset. So, kasi even people in culture and HR, it has to go through a transformation, no? Combining private sector practices and the policies that the government would provide. Maybe we're just not there yet, but let's not lose hope, especially that the world is interconnected. Sometimes there's also that factor of tectonic shifts brought about social media that sometimes becomes the start of forcing. I don't want to use the term forcing, but sometimes organizations are forced to do it, which is sometimes good because the public is now clamoring for it, right? So let's hope that if it's not on the policy angle that would force our companies to do it, then maybe the public awareness would be the one that's gonna force employers to actually do it. So it's a multi-layered sometimes forces, right? To make that shift.
Okay, thank you, Sir Brian. We're actually filled by the flood of questions that we've been receiving online. However, due to time constraints, we need to bring our open pouring to a close. Oh, may hahabol pa daw. May isa pa bang tanong from our on-site participant? Last na po talaga ito.
Okay, good afternoon na. Sorry. Kay Miss Flo, ni Ma'am Flo,
Anong binibigay na straw dito, ma'am?
Ma'am Flo, you have mentioned that in one of your slide na
Float up.
what will HR look like in the 2030? And you mentioned that robots will take on more work, but humans won't be left behind. How can we ensure that, given the technological advancement going on these days? And for Sir Brian, striking yung the essential skills that the general workforce must have to address skills mismatch, and you mentioned yung effective storytelling to communicate impact. Do you think this is also applicable to the public sector or the government sector, especially yung the academe? Kasi we've been doing mga budget preparations year in year out, and yet we still have problems with the funding of HEIs every year. And for LA, you've mentioned yung contractualization in the government sector. Yung hugot ko bilang galing sa sa Union, this has been the battle cry lagi ng Union na yung contractual gawing regular. Parang na-strike na ako dun sa mention mo na parang this is not allowed, especially in the government sector. How can we capitalize on this para naman may paglaban yung mga COS and JOs na nasa academe right now?
Siguro ako na lang po magsimula kasi mas madaling sagutin yung akin. Paano ba? I feel that, the way the issue of contractualization is framed in the Philippines is, I mean, at least most of the union would fight, would forward the cause of contractualization in the context of rights-based. But, economists usually look at that lowly as compared to other priorities like economics. So I feel personally na okay, rights-based approach is valid, and the right to organization, the right to security of tenure is really a valid right protected by our constitution. But we also need to argue in terms of economics. So in the context of other countries, may economic rationale yung pag-push for security of tenure. Sa Pilipinas kasi they are saying that it's because of cost cutting. But in other countries, especially in the burgeoning, on the newer kind of research on public administration and even political economy, they would say that, security of tenure would lead to better state capacities, which can lead to better development outcomes. So feeling ko, beyond rights-based, we can also argue this. Especially yung mga economic managers natin ay really, I mean, they really have a high place in the policy making. So if we could argue with their language, maybe they could also consider.
Thank you, Sir
Quickly,
LH.
quickly on the effective storytelling for the government. Obviously, I think that's also very applicable, especially yung quote unquote addict na addict sa research, no, yung very famous line from one of our senators. So I think to convince that we really need more budget, especially in the government, especially SUCs, right? Effective storytelling then plays a critical role in convincing our public servants to allocate more budget on education and really creating that narrative on the investment. So especially who are the beneficiaries of research, what the kind of impact that it delivers, or the initiatives in the universities where those additional resources are being channeled. So I think effective storytelling is not just probably in voluntary sector, but in all sectors, right? That's how you can always create a narrative and gain resources. So aside sa resilience, I think effective storytelling is the 21st century skill. So it's definitely transferable across all sectors. So yeah, we need data-driven narratives. We need to elicit emotions. And we need to deliver those stories effectively so that we can drive more resources or even more policies that we really need to improve situation of our nation. So
Thank you, Sir Brian. Next po is si Ma'am Flo.
Okay, so dun sa question no, na how can we be sure that AI will not take over HR? Well, we have to think of AI as a tool, not a decision maker. So it helps us make decisions, it provides us with information, with data, but at the end of the day, critical thinking will remain a human trait, at least for now, at least for the next few decades, I think. So we have to shift HR, no, from administrative to strategic, train HR professionals to be better in critical thinking and better in analyzing data and making decisions. And most importantly, we have to have a people-first approach in HR. So human connections, building connections within the organization, technology should not replace that. It should enhance it, but not replace it. That's why if we go back to the top skills of 2023 by WEF, most of the skills there were still human skills, more on emotional intelligence, analysis, and creative thinking. So, ang important lang po is matrain natin, no, lalo na yung mga clerical staff, to have more critical thinking and upskill and reskill them to be ready for AI and for the advances in technology in the next few years. But yes, there's no need to be fearful of data. Kasi there's anything that technology can bring, it's really data, it's big data. And sometimes we fear the things we do not understand. So siguro we start by understanding them, involving ourselves in how they can be used, how they work, para mawala po yung fear natin of data, because data is our friend if we know how to use it properly. So AI can be our friend if we know how to use it properly also. So again, let's remove the fear. Let's lead the change, because by leading the change, then we can have a more predictable future.
Ayan. Thank you so much to all our speakers. I know we will all agree that we learned a lot from our speakers today. Okay, now to formally close our program, it's my pleasure to invite a truly dedicated to the stage. Please join me in welcoming Assistant Professor Regina Mendoza Armiendo, Program Chair of the Master in and FMDS Public Service Committee Chair. Ma'am Reg.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for still being here on site. We have a million audience here on site. And of course, online. I think over 400 registered for today's event. So on behalf of the MPM program and FMDS Public Service Committee, maraming salamat po. So we have somehow survived the challenges of operating in a rapidly changing, or what we all know as VUCA world. And now that we have entered the Bani environment, brought about by climate change and the pandemic in 2020, conditions have become brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. So we need to have the right knowledge, skills, and competencies to thrive. So as mentioned by our esteemed speakers, bright minds of Ms. Rivera, Mr. Depante, and Mr. Hipolito, we need to have resilience, but we also need to develop a collaborative culture coupled with increased communication and transparency. So we need to have technical skills, but we also need to develop mindfulness and empathy, or emotion work. So we need to have a plan, but we should not stop there, because we should be able to adjust when needed. And of course, we have to be able to innovate. And finally, we need to harness the power of data as a tool for decision making, regardless of the sector. So we can have advanced HR information systems in the private sector, policy analysis, policy making in the public sector, and even resource generation in the voluntary sector. So this is exactly why lifelong learning will play an even more vital role for effective leadership than before. The culture of lifelong learning is seen to be the most important tool to brace the impacts of the Bani environment. So as mentioned, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. So UPOU is of course very committed to make lifelong learning accessible to Filipinos everywhere. The MPM program in particular trains public managers, HR practitioners, and individuals from all walks of life to gain a larger perspective in exploring and solving present-day issues. So holding this HR forum is our way to offer you, our partners and stakeholders, the opportunity to combine what we already know with openness towards new things, so that we can deal with the adversities of the Bani environment. I think today we have just covered 3 semesters worth of materials. So I now have open educational resource that I can use for my courses later on. So thank you very much to our 3 speakers. And I'm really proud to call them my good friends. Okay, so we hope that today's discussion can help you get ready for Industry 4.0 or even beyond. And with people like our passionate speakers leading HR in the different sectors, I think we can say that the future of work is more compassionate, more sustainable, and to borrow Taylor Swift's word, dazzling. Okay, so thank you very much, and may we all have the chance to work hard at something worth doing. Thank you po.
Hello, ayun na talaga. Ayan. Thank you very much, Ma'am Reg. Again, thank you so much, Ma'am Reg. And with that, we've reached the end of our program. We appreciate everyone's participation and enthusiasm today. Okay, so before we wrap up, we kindly ask everyone to take a moment to complete our short event evaluation form. You can access it using the QR code and link that are currently flashed on the screen. Your feedback is invaluable to us and help us improve our future events. Please note that you'll receive an e-certificate once you've completed the evaluation form. It may take 5 to 10 business days for you to receive it. On behalf of FMES, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us today, both in person and virtually. We truly appreciate your participation. Thank you.